All right. Thank you for tuning in to the live show. It is currently 2:41 p.m. and of course today's date is the 24th of July 2025. Welcome back to the live show. Yes, we are back. First of all, we got to give thanks to whom deserves it, which is the God of all, the King of Kings, the Father of all spirit. So, shout out to God. Thank God for life. Thank God for the air in my lungs. And shout out to everybody who is tuned in right now. God bless you guys. First of all, America is the greatest nation on the face of the earth. And God made it so. All right. So we're here. We're back for another one. You are currently tuned into the Genesis Show. This is your boy Genesis. Breaking news. All right. Breaking news. The legend, wrestling legend, Hulk Hogan passes away at age 71 years old. The legendary entertainer, wrestler, businessman, Hulk Hogan has just passed away at 71 years old. So, ladies and gentlemen, life is short and we got to stay united and just be grateful for what you have, be grateful for life, and be thankful that you are here and that you have air in your lungs. Like I always say, there are people in the hospital right now fighting for their lives. The people in the hospital right now, they can't eat. They have to, you know, consume food through feeding tube or whatever. So look, be thankful for your life. Be grateful for what you have. And it's not that serious, ladies and gentlemen. It is just conversations that we have, but it's not that serious. So, the legendary wrestler, one more time, Hulk Hogan, passes away at 31 years old. So, with that being said, God is the greatest, and everything we do in life, I'm told that it echoes in eternity. Okay, so hopefully, the legendary Hulk Hogan is entertaining them where he is right now in the beautiful resting place that God has designed for him. So, with that being said, we're going to check out what CNN has to say concerning the 71 years old icon who just passed away. Here we go.
Now to some sad breaking news. Wrestling legend Hulk Hogan has died at the age of 71. Clearwater, Florida officials tell CNN emergency personnel responded to a medical call at 9:51 a.m. related to cardiac arrest. CNN's Andy Scholes joins me now. Andy, what are you hearing?
Manu, I mean, it's just the sports world mourning the loss of Hulk Hogan. You know, he was just, he was a cultural icon. You know, no one put wrestling on the map more than Hulk Hogan did in the 1980s. You know, when he slammed Andre the Giant, I mean, that was just a moment that really propelled wrestling into the mainstream. And, you know, I grew up, I was a Hulkamaniac as a kid. You know, I when his song Real American hit, you know, it would just give you chills when he would come out to the ring, and he was just such a performer and what a speaker he was. You know, all the things he used to say, you know, what you gonna do when Hulkamania runs wild on you, or when he was doing an interview with Mean Gene Okerlund and he said, let me tell you something, brother. I mean, it's just the things he did, you know, that just resonated, you know, for decades to come. And, you know, he was such a powerful speaker. Like I said, Manu, you know, I worked in Dallas. He once came on my sports show back in the day called Inside Sports, and hey, Hulk, can you rip off a promo for us? And he immediately, just like that, Manu, just like that, was able to rip off a 20-second promo, no questions. But, you know, the sports world and the WWE, everyone putting out a statement just of how sad of a moment this is. The WWE said, saddened to learn that Hall of Famer Hulk Hogan has passed away. He's one of pop culture's most recognizable figures. Hogan helped WWE achieve global recognition in the 80s. And the WWE extends its condolences to Hogan's family, friends, and fans. And then Ric Flair, who was an icon right alongside Hogan through the decades wrestling, he said, "I'm absolutely shocked to hear about the passing of my close friend Hulk Hogan. Hulk has been by my side since we started in the wrestling business, an incredible athlete, talent, friend, and father. Our friendship has meant the world to me. He was always there for me when I didn't ask for him to be." And he went on to share some stories of the Hulkster. But Manu, Hulk, big part of my childhood. I know everyone's got a Hulk Hogan moment they remember, and he's just an icon. And it's sad that he's now not with us, leaving us at the age of 71.
Yeah, there was nobody like Hulk Hogan. What a figure he was in society and wrestling and the like, and he'll be remembered by people, both not just in the sports world, but in the political world as well, which we're going to talk about here at the table. Andy Scholes, thank you so much for that. And we're back here around the table. Hulk, of course, was a big supporter of President Trump's. None of us can forget this memorable speech from the 2024 Republican convention.
Took a shot at my hero. And they tried to kill the next President of the United States. Enough was enough. And I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania make America great again.
Man.
I mean, I don't really remember a lot from the Republican convention. Do you remember? I remember that vividly.
I mean, yeah.
You were in the room.
I was. I mean, no one will forget the tearing off of the shirt. Look, I mean, he was someone I remember when I was talking to a lot of people on the ground. They were like, this is what I'm excited for. People were so jazzed that they were going to be seeing Hulk Hogan. A lot of, my sources, a lot of people I've talked with, they're like, not a lot of people get me excited anymore, but Hulk Hogan does. And it was interesting because he actually was a primetime speaker. He was one of the last people to go on right before the president came out and gave his speech. He also was someone who didn't always support Trump. It was actually pretty late in the race that he ended up going out and endorsing him. He said after he saw him stand up at Butler, that's what did it for him. But look, he really became not only obviously what Andy was saying, a huge icon, a figure, but he really became that in the Republican movement as well. And we're seeing already, I was looking on my phone on social media, people like Donald Trump Jr., a lot of the president's top supporters, family members, saying that he was a legend and rest in peace, Hulk Hogan.
Donald Trump Jr. just tweeted, "R.I.P. to a legend, Hulk Hogan." They developed a friendship beyond just him being someone who, as you can see on the screen, the tweet right there, beyond just being a celebrity that, we see political parties bring celebrities on for a variety of reasons, but for the Trump world and Trump family, there was a friendship and a relationship that was built as well.
Totally, and Hogan would go on some of the podcasts that they had. He did a lot of interviews around it. And I mean, look, he was someone who they all, like many other people, really idolized. And to have him, I remember getting up on that stage, again, from all the conversations I was having, no one was more excited for him, and everyone was chanting USA. It was one of those moments sitting in the convention center where you could tell the energy was so excited for him. So yeah, it's crazy. This news really sad that he's gone now.
Yeah, and Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, just posted as well. I always saw him as a stature. He's a giant in stature and in life. That's what it says there on there. But CNN's Brian Stelter joins me live now, and Brian, talk to me about his legacy, not just in politics, as we've discussed, and of course in sports, as we've discussed, but also in the media.
Listen, we've all learned the phrase in recent years, GOAT. Sports fans debate who is the GOAT in various fields. Well, Hulk Hogan was the GOAT, when it comes to the world of wrestling and in the world of world wrestling entertainment. When you think about the WWE, there's that word, entertainment. And Hulk Hogan, more than any other wrestler in the 80s and 90s, knew how to put on a show. He knew how to entertain. And he really helped build the WWE into the the worldwide franchise that it is today. It has become such a huge business, and that was partly on Hulk Hogan's literal back. When I think about Hogan's legacy, I also think about his legal legacy. You were talking before the break about Hogan's politics. We know, of course, how President Trump has been very litigious lately. Well, who was it that kind of ushered in this era of celebrity lawsuits against media outlets? I would say Hulk Hogan is the person that gets that billing. Hulk Hogan he decided to sue a blog called Gawker about 10 years ago at this point, because Gawker published a sex tape that he was in. This lawsuit worked its way through the courts for years. It eventually bankrupted Gawker. It was a very big trial in Florida at the time. It bankrupted the blog, kicked it out of business. And what we later learned was that the entire lawsuit was bankrolled by billionaire tech entrepreneur Peter Thiel. He was angry at another Gawker-affiliated blog for outing him a number of years earlier. So Hulk Hogan's identity, his name, it'll be remembered in many different ways, of course, for sports and for wrestling, for politics, but also for legal reasons, because he essentially was able to knock out that famous blog Gawker through a legal battle about a decade ago.
Yeah, that was a very, very big deal, the shuttering of Gawker, and successful in that lawsuit. And so many things, media, politics. I also remember in 2000, he also had faked a presidential run, appearing on the Tonight Show in a bit of a gag and pretending he was going for president. He didn't do it then, but Trump later said in 2024 he'd give him a position as as a president's counsel on physical fitness, and that didn't really come to pass. But all right, Brian Stelter, thank you for that remembrance of the really important moment from Hulk Hogan's past.
Sources tell CNN that the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, informed President Trump 2 months ago that his name appears in the Epstein files. The briefing reportedly happened back in May, but just last week, the president appeared to tell reporters that never happened. We should note there is no evidence that President Trump was involved in any wrongdoing or that he knew of Epstein's activities. Joining us now is longtime Democratic strategist James Carville. He was also the lead strategist for Bill Clinton's 1992 presidential campaign. James, thanks so much for joining us. As you know, the White House says Trump's name being in the Epstein files isn't groundbreaking or surprising. Do you agree with that?
In some ways I do, but there is evidence he knew about it. He said Epstein likes girls, particularly on the younger side. I mean, he was obviously aware, at a minimum, of what Epstein was up to. But anybody, my name could be in an FBI file. Your name could be in an FBI file. That doesn't mean anything in itself, and nor is FBI files particularly determinative of anything. But I do agree, just because your name is in a file doesn't mean that you did anything wrong.
That's a good point. That's an important point, and we keep underscoring that here in the Situation Room as well. The Epstein case, as you know, James, is very important to at least a part of Trump's so-called MAGA base. Do you see this as something that could cause real political damage to the president if, in fact, more information is not released?
But if you think about it, well, he can't lose any of his base. He clocks in, let's just say, for 88% of Republicans, maybe 90. He's falling among independents, and 90% of the Democrats don't like it. Well, if he loses even 10% of his Republican support, that's a political catastrophe for him. I mean, he's operating under very small margins here. And they have been told, part of MAGA, and it's deeply inbred in MAGA, is that there's a certain cabal of people who are involved in child sex trafficking. And they've been told to believe this, and they're a little flummoxed now. And Trump is not assuring them in any way or form that this not happen, that he's not part of a coastal elite or Epstein and everything else. So that, yes, he does have some problem with part of his base.
The Trump administration, James, clearly wants to move on from Epstein. The director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, is accusing former President Obama of manufacturing intelligence about Russia's 2016 election interference. And now the Department of Justice is creating a panel to investigate all the evidence. What do you make of this?
Well, President Trump wanted to play golf with President Obama, and President Obama doesn't want to play golf with him. So why would he play golf with someone that he thought was treasonous? I mean, look, I don't think the public is going to get distracted from this. And this story has other potential avenues it can go. Remember that Epstein had I think a 7,500 acre ranch in New Mexico. And how do we know that New Mexican authorities are not looking into this? And of course, that would not be subjected to a pardon by Trump. So, I mean, that's another thing to think about here. I mean, there's a lot of different things going on here. But the idea that President Obama was just, let's say he was a traitor, let's say President Clinton was a traitor, Secretary Clinton was a traitor, they're going long right now. That's all I can say. It's 4th and 72, and they're trying something.
Hunter Biden, as you know, is very angrily speaking out this week about the 2024 presidential election and the Democrats who called on his father to exit the race, including you. And I want to play a little bit of what he's been saying. Listen to this.
You know what? We are going to insert our judgment over yours. Me and James Carville, who hasn't run a race in 40 years, and David Axelrod, who had one success in his political life, and that was Barack Obama. And that was because of Barack Obama, not because of David Axelrod. And David Plouffe, and all of these guys, and the Pod Save America guys, who were junior speechwriters on Barack Obama's Senate staff, who have been dining out on the relationship with him for years, making millions of dollars.
I want to give you a chance to respond to Hunter Biden. Go ahead, James.
First of all, it's 31 years, not 40, but okay, I take it. You know, I'm kind of part of an Irish clan, and he is too. And I would never blame a guy for trying to defend his daddy. I understand that. And if it was, the shoe was on my foot, I did what I thought I had to do. I did it. I didn't enjoy doing it, but I'm not unhappy that I did. And I'm not upset by this. This is a son that's, having a difficult time. Things are emotional, and they say things and all the stuff that's said about me. That's like the 152nd worst thing I've ever heard.
All right, James Carville, thanks very much for joining us as usual. CNN's Elena Treen is here with me in the Situation Room. I want to start with CNN's Ivan Rodriguez. Ivan is over at the Tallahassee courthouse for us. He's on the scene. What do we know, first of all, about Maxwell's expected meeting with the Deputy Attorney General?
Well, Wolf, good morning. It's been a little over 2 hours now since we saw Ghislaine Maxwell's attorney, David Oscar Marcus, walk through the front doors here behind me of this federal courthouse. Both of them are expected to meet, as you said, with Deputy AG Todd Blanche. And right now it's unclear, Wolf, if the meeting is already underway, if we're still waiting for Todd Blanche to arrive. I've been outside of the federal courthouse here for the last few hours now. No clear indication on my end whether Todd Blanche has already come inside. A clear indicator of the meeting already being over, we'll know, is when we do see Maxwell's attorney exit the front doors here at the federal courthouse. We'll be very interested to see as well what he has to say. He didn't make any comments going into the federal courthouse earlier this morning, but we'll see if he does have anything to say on the exit here from that meeting. And again, Wolf, as we've been reporting, all this comes as a judge declined yesterday to release those grand jury indictments, the grand jury documents from a criminal probe into Ghislaine Maxwell. So a lot of eyes are on what comes out of this meeting here, Wolf, and as well as what Todd Blanche can possibly bring to the table as well.
All right, Ivan Rodriguez on the scene for us down in Tallahassee. Thank you very much. We'll stay in close touch with you. I want to bring in Elena right now. What do we know about the president's name in these unreleased Epstein files?
Yeah, so the Wall Street Journal first broke this news, Wolf, but then I caught up with some sources. And I'd remind you that, the Justice Department, one of their key goals when coming into the Trump administration was to go through all of these documents and try to figure out what was in the Epstein files. And what we've learned is the president's name came up several times, multiple times, according to the sources that I talked with for this. Now, we also are learning that that when Attorney General Pam Bondi briefed President Donald Trump on this in May, I was told it was a routine briefing, but she told him that his name was in the documents. Now, the White House has been very clear with me in my conversations with officials there that, it was a routine briefing. The scope of that meeting was not solely to tell him that his name was in it. They talked about a lot of things, including how they believe there was a lot of unsubstantiated claims in the documents. There were multiple names of high-profile figures also included in them. But the reason that this is gaining so much attention is because the president himself denied that when asked about it last week. And so much the attention right now, the reason this story has become so monumental and lasting for about 3 weeks now is because people feel like the White House isn't being that transparent about what they actually know is in those documents. And I do want to be clear that just because his name is in there does not mean that there was any wrongdoing. The context of how his name came up is unclear. Like many other high-profile 1990s figures in New York, I mean, he was brushing arms with Epstein. He was an associate of him. That is well documented. And so it's unclear what the context of his name being in there is. The main thing is that, he was told about this and denied it. Now, I do want to read you a statement from one of the officials who I spoke with, one of the White House officials. They told me, quote, "The White House is not surprised by this. Trump's name was present in the binders that Bondi produced and handed out." We also got a statement from the White House Communications Director, Stephen Chung, on this, like a lot of things relating to Epstein Wolf. He called this fake news. When I talked to the people at the White House, though, about this, they said they're not disputing that his name is in these documents. They're disputing the fact that they believe there's some sort of broader conspiracy, that he was tied up in some sort of wrongdoing associated with Epstein. And so, look, I think going forward, this is not something that's going to quell a lot of the dissatisfaction with a lot of the president's supporters over the handling of this and just kind of the latest turn of the wheel and everything we're learning about this case.
They were pals. They were friends for many, many years. Mm-hmm. And that's clear, right?
Mm-hmm. It is. It's clear. I mean, they did have a very well-documented falling out long before these allegations about Epstein being a sex trafficker or involved in child abuse ever surfaced. So that's why it's not surprising that his name is in these files. It's the main thing is that he lied to reporters when asked if he was told about it.
Interesting point, Art. Elena, thank you very much for your excellent report.
All right, here we go. And so it begins. All right, back to
And earlier today, the Department of Justice confirmed that it received Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard's criminal referral on bombshell claims that members of the Obama administration, quote, manufactured the Russia collusion hoax after she released documents on Friday. We had her on Friday night that reportedly show overwhelming evidence that Obama and his national security team laid the groundwork for the entire Russia collusion hoax. Now, here now with the latest, former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan. This means a lot to all three of us. I probably annoyed the two of you more than any two people on earth for 3 long years trying to get information about the truth on that story. It turns out our ensemble cast, and I won't mention everybody, but John Solomon and Greg Jarrett and Sarah Carter and others, we all got it right. There were a very small number of people that wanted to get it right. You two were leading the effort. Here we are. Mark Meadows, what does this mean?
Well, I think it's a big day, but I think the other thing is that there's going to be all kinds of postmortems to suggest, well, what we knew back then and what you were willing to cover, Sean, actually wasn't the case. And so what do we know? We know that candidate Donald Trump and candidate Hillary Clinton were treated differently. We also know that Clapper, Brennan and Comey met outside the workplace. We know that according to text messages. And we also know that in August of 2016, they were actually meeting at the White House. And so does this come as a surprise to Jim, you, or me? No, not at all. But here's what should be told tonight is they need to go after all the people that they shared in the legacy media that covered this up, including Adam Schiff.
That's a great point. Jim Jordan, I'll go to you. To me, this grand conspiracy investigation that Kash Patel has now opened a number of weeks ago, I think a lot of this is going to come down to whether or not what we refer to as the deep state, and there is one, and whether or not there were people within our government knowingly lying to the American people, spreading propaganda for the purposes of tipping an election to one side over the other. You can say, for example, the Russia hoax would be one example for 2016, but also the double standard with top secret classified information with Hillary. Or, of course, the Russian disinformation dossier that Hillary Clinton paid for. Then you go to 2020, the laptop from hell, 51 former intel agents that knew nothing about that laptop. Boy, they all sounded like experts. Looks like Russian interference. None of them looked at it. And then you could take it through lawfare in 2024. They went after Donald Trump with a vengeance so they could call him a convict, mugshot him. They wanted to put him in jail. They never thought he would be able to beat the system. But this is a 10-year period of time that we're talking about here.
Right. And it all started back in 2016. And it wasn't just to keep him from winning the election in 2016. It was to undermine his presidency after he had already won. I want you to think of 3 dates in the interim between Election Day and Inauguration Day back in 2016, 2017. December 9th, Obama calls a meeting in the White House. All the intelligence community is there, plus the Justice Department. You got Lynch, you got Comey, you got Clapper, you got Brennan. They're all there. Obama says, we're not going to go with the intelligence community assessment. We're going to put that on hold, and they put together a new one. 3.5 weeks later, January 3rd, Chuck Schumer's on one of the Sunday shows, and he says, if you mess with the intelligence community, talking to President-elect Donald Trump, if you mess with the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday to get back at you. 3 days later, Sean, 3 days later, January 6th at Trump Tower, the intelligence community, Comey, Brennan, Clapper, go up there to give President Trump what he believes is the defensive briefing all incoming presidents get. So he's expecting just the normal briefing. Instead, it's a setup. They go up there and brief him, and then they tell him about the dossier that they already know is false. And then it gets leaked to the press, and thereby giving it credibility when the press reports that Jim Comey, FBI director, briefed Donald Trump on the Russian dossier. It was all garbage, but it was all designed to undermine. This is where it began. The whole weaponization of government began here. And to your first point, Sean, you're right. We had figured this out several years ago, and we're covering this, and the only thing we had wrong was it was worse than we thought. That's the only thing we get wrong when we dig into these investigations. It's always worse than we thought.
Okay, now, there was that final moment. They had this meeting, I believe it was January 5th, and in just the final minutes of Obama's presidency, Susan Rice, that infamous memo, by the book, Barack Obama said, buy the book. James Comey said, buy the book. Why would you write that weeks after a meeting, only 2 minutes before Donald Trump's inaugurated? Mark Meadows.
Well, you would do it to try to change the narrative, and Jen was exactly right. They had spent the preceding days actually leaking to the press so that the press could write a story to actually create suspicion, and in doing so, they created the very story that supposedly they were giving a defensive briefing to the president about. Listen, they knew it would last. They're the best leakers in Washington, D.C., and then when they leak, they investigate their own leaks. And so this is what has got to stop, and hopefully it will.
Jim,
Sean,
will anybody... Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, buy the book was just a CYA. That's all they were doing. Everyone understands that. But what they did was a template, because 3 weeks after they go up and try to set up President Trump on January 6, 2017, 3 weeks later, they were successful with General Flynn. They go in and set him up. Remember, Comey spoke later at a big forum. He said, yeah, we knew it was a new administration. We should have called the White House counsel, but we thought we could get away with it. They set up Michael Flynn and took him out. Same playbook. That is why what Tulsi did, referring this to the Justice Department, God bless her and God bless the Justice Department. They should look into this as a conspiracy for what it is. Thank goodness Cash has said the same thing. This has to happen because this is where it all began.
All right, the dynamic duo, Jim Jordan and Mark Meadows. Thank you both. Hey, Sean Hannity here.
All right, so in New York, the news is illegal immigrants are disturbing the city with scooter. Here we go. According to
finally, key Democrats are being honest about what their true position is on illegal immigration.
People are really upset about illegal immigration. You. How do you think your hotel room gets cleaned? How do you think you got food on your table? Who do you think washes your dishes?
Well, my kids and I wash our own dishes. Thanks very much, Hunter. Well, Hunter Biden's comments are lazy, the product of someone who's either stupid or an open borders fanatic. The false argument is that any illegal who has a job should be exempt from the law. Oh, that's called de facto amnesty, sweetheart. But of course, Hunter is not affected by illegal immigration. His job of moocher son wouldn't be replaced by an illegal. And in New York City, an off-duty Border Patrol agent was enjoying a night out in the park when he was approached by two illegals with a different job. Well, their job was to rob him. And in the process, they allegedly shot him in the face. He shot back at them. One was hit and got on a moped. They ride those around in New York a lot, and went to the hospital. His partner in crime then dumped him like a rag doll and sped away. Both are from the Dominican Republic, both caught trying to get into the country, and thanks to Biden's wonderful policy there, they were released to terrorize Americans.
Miguel Francisco Moro Nunez is and has a rap sheet that is a mile long. The state of Massachusetts has an active warrant out for him for armed robbery with a firearm. He also has many other charges against him, such as kidnapping and witness intimidation. He was arrested 4 different times in New York City, and because of the mayor's policies and sanctuary city policies, was released back to do harm to people and to individuals living in this city.
Here to discuss is Stephen Miller, White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy. Stephen, I thank the good Lord that this agent is okay. But others have not been so lucky, and Americans across the board have suffered either their pocketbooks, their school overcrowding, health care, and also horrific crime. Your reaction to Hunter Biden's F off comment?
Well, Hunter Biden's father, his administration, presided over the greatest invasion on American soil in American history. The mass theft and pillaging of American jobs, wealth, and security. And you're seeing the results of that with that video footage that we've all watched now of 2 illegal aliens with serial criminal records that Joe Biden, that the Democrats, the Democrat Party, purposefully let into the country, set free, had custody of, and released. And then they ambushed this brave CBP officer who, despite the injuries he sustained, fought off his attackers. And of course, one of those attackers, you can now see the footage, was dumped by his accomplice in an emergency room after sustaining 3 gunshot wounds. But this is happening all over this country. Joe Biden and the Democrat Party allowed millions of military-age men with criminal records and criminal intentions and criminal ambitions into the country to prey on us, to prey on our cities, to prey on our communities. Then on top of that, millions more are stealing our benefits, stealing health care, stealing spots in our public schools, and stealing the wages and the incomes of working Americans. It is a travesty across the board. Under President Trump's leadership, though, record numbers are being picked up, deported, arrested, jailed, and sent out.
And Stephen, instead of actually rethinking their sanctuary policies, especially just given all this crime and the filth and everything else, they're blaming the guy who's trying to fix it. Watch.
Trump administration should spend the billions of dollars in taxpayer resources that it has to make this country as safe as possible by focusing on deporting violent felons. Not showing up at Little League baseball games, churches, schools, and hospitals.
Stephen, they will not take accountability, responsibility, because I really think they're in their heart of hearts, they don't care if Americans are brutalized. They literally do not care because they knew what was going to happen when they opened the borders.
Can you imagine getting a lecture on public safety from the party that has let child rapists and murderers into this country en masse? Do you have any idea how many little girls have been maimed and raped and killed by the illegal aliens that they let into our country, that they gleefully allowed into our nation? And they want to lecture us on public safety? They have destroyed the lives of countless thousands of Americans. And today, Democrats run sanctuary cities.
that protect and shield illegal aliens who have committed the most heinous crimes from deportation. In every one of these cases, look at the case right here, this CBP officer. His assailant was arrested and released, arrested and released, arrested and released because Democrat policies shield these monsters from deportation by purpose and by design. Their policies are evil. They are intentional. They are malicious. They hate this country, and they want our people to suffer, and they have turned migration into a weapon. And when ICE and Border Patrol go out and conduct these raids, what do they find? Trafficked and enslaved children. They find offenders with rap sheets that go from here to the other side of the country. State after state, a trail of blood and suffering. And ICE and Border Patrol are getting these monsters out of our country, getting these predators out of our communities.
Well,
Under President Trump's leadership, murder rates are finally falling because these people are being sent home.
And L.A. Mayor Karen Bass, speaking of sanctuary cities, Stephen, was asked about, she's put on the spot, basically, who should be deported? Right? Well, who should be deported? And they don't want anyone deported. But anyway, she avoided answering the question. Watch.
We are a city of immigrants. We have entire sectors of our economy that are dependent on immigrant labor. We have to get the fire areas rebuilt. We're not going to get our city rebuilt without immigrant labor. And it's not just the deportation. It's the fear that sets in when raids occur, when people are snatched off the street.
So, Stephen, we can't rebuild the Palisades unless we have illegal labor, because Americans never built anything, apparently, according to Karen Bass. I am so sick of the crops rotting in the field argument and the nothing will ever get built. Like, when I grew up, everybody worked construction in the summer. That was the best job you could get when you're in high school or college, was to work construction, because it paid so well. And kids wanted that job, but apparently they just don't want Americans to do that anymore.
If you look at photos of the Empire State Building being constructed in record time, by the way, what you don't see there are any illegal aliens. You look at the photos of us landing a man on the moon, you look at the NASA control room, you don't see any photos of illegal aliens. Americans built this country, Americans sustained this country, Americans have powered this country for 2.5 centuries. Nobody voted to turn Los Angeles, what was once one of the crown jewel cities of Americans, into a third world failed city. Nobody voted for the crime. Every day ICE is out there in Los Angeles deporting MS-13 gang members, 18th Street gang members, Sinaloa cartel gang members, Sureños gang members. You are talking about some of the most violent, sadistic, vicious, heinous people on the face of the earth. Who voted to put them here? Who voted to destroy our public education system, our public healthcare system, our hospital system? Nobody voted for it. You know what they did do? They voted for Donald Trump to clean it up, and by God, he is cleaning it up every day.
All right, Stephen, as always, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Stephen is not playing around, yo. Stephen is not. Stephen Miller, ladies and gentlemen. All right, here we go. Hunter Biden.
The suspect has now been arrested in New York City, according to DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, for the alleged shooting of an off-duty CBP agent. Both suspects now in police custody. For more on this, let's bring in the acting ICE Director, Todd Lyons. Here's what Secretary Noem said upon the arrest of the second suspect. The second suspect involved in the shooting of the CBP agent was caught by ICE early this morning. Christian Ibar Barreau is an illegal from the Dominican Republic. He entered the country illegally in 2022 under the Biden administration and was ordered for final removal in 2023 by an immigration judge. He has a criminal record in New York City, and detainers were ignored thanks to Eric Adams' sanctuary city policies. He was arrested for reckless endangerment and larceny and was released before ICE could get him off the streets. I mean, it's the first time we've heard of this in this particular situation, but how many times have we heard this story about an illegal alien comes in the Biden administration, is paroled into the country, commits a crime, somebody's either dead or severely wounded?
Yeah, John, that's the scary thing too, right? Is, we're so thankful that the CBP officer is going to be okay. We pray for him and his family. But what if this was just a normal person out there on the river at night? We wouldn't know about this. Hey, these two illegals could have killed an innocent person or two people at this point. There were so many gotaways and so many people let in under the last administration that didn't come here for a better life. And we see that now. Both these individuals have such a large criminal history, and they've been encountered so many times by local law enforcement that this accident or this incident should have never happened. Should never have happened.
Secretary Noem drove home that point earlier today during the press conference upon the arrest of the first suspect. Listen to what she said.
He was arrested. He was charged with grand larceny and also assault. The state of Massachusetts has an active warrant out for him for armed robbery with a firearm. He also has many other charges against him, such as kidnapping and witness intimidation. There's absolutely zero reason that someone who is scum of the earth like this should be running loose on the streets of New York City.
But because of sanctuary policies, he is. And the question is, Todd, how many thousands or tens of thousands of other folks just like him are out there?
That's just it, John. We don't know. And that's, I'm so happy that Secretary Noem flew up there right away to check on the officer and to have this press conference, because she knows this is the huge problem for us, these sanctuary jurisdictions. There are so many criminal aliens that are encountered daily by local and state law enforcement that just aren't, being turned over to us or just letting us even be notified that we could take action. These incidents are all preventable. ICE could be removing a lot of these criminal aliens that have final order deportations like these two men, yet we're not being notified. We're not being allowed to do our law enforcement mission.
So the former first son, Hunter Biden, is weighing in on immigration in an interview with a YouTube channel called Channel 5. He said, quote, all these Democrats say you have to talk about and realize that people are really upset about illegal immigrations. F you. How do you think your hotel room gets cleaned? How do you think you have food on your effing table? Who do you think washes your dishes? I would pick up the phone and call the effing president of El Salvador and say, you either effing send them back or I'm going to effing invade. It's an effing crime what they're doing. He's an effing dictator thug.
What
your
in the world?
That's just idiotic. It's dumb. To make comments like that is crazy, because under the last administration, those are the problems we have right now. Under these former administrations, President Obama, President Biden, it's made illegal immigration common in the commonplace. And that's just not the case. Not only are they stealing jobs from American hardworking citizens, but American taxpayers have to pay so much for a lot of these illegal aliens that have come here to commit crime. And to take a stance like that is totally unacceptable. We need to have a strong stance on immigration.
And then we see what's happening with your officers, ICE, CBP, others who are associated with you in these enforcement actions. And we think back, because you've been at this an awfully long time. And in the Obama administration, you were telling me offline that you actually arrested more in the Obama administration than you're doing now.
I've had the privilege to serve for 4 presidents, and this is the first time we've ever met such resistance, where we have elected leaders calling for violence and harm to ICE officers and agents, law enforcement personnel, and their families. It's unacceptable. People should realize, elected officials and the left that have this crazy rhetoric, we're just doing a law enforcement mission.
But just let me come back to that point. You said that you effected more arrests during the Obama administration than during the Trump administration. Yet there wasn't this enormous hue and cry.
No.
And nobody was doxing the police officers, law enforcement. Nobody was out there in the streets protesting.
No, and it's all against President Trump and what he's trying to do to keep America safe. If you link back to that, you didn't see ICE agents in masks. You didn't have to worry about ICE agents being doxxed. We didn't have sanctuary cities rampant like we do now. Yet to fit the political agenda, people are focused on the law enforcement mission of ICE, and it's just not right. We are keeping Americans safe. We're making America safe again.
Todd, great.
There you have it on illegal immigration. All right, Tom Hman.
I predict it will be a prison break. New York desperately needs strong, sane leadership, not woke Marxism. Just this weekend, an off-duty Border Patrol officer was shot in the face during a botched robbery in a New York City park. But as of earlier today, Mamdani was totally silent about that shooting. After all, he's on vacation. Here now to respond is Trump's border czar. He's doing a phenomenal job. Tom Hman is with us. Tom, thank you for being with us. This guy apparently is second suspect in the New York City border agent shooting. Is a Biden illegal who had 8 priors?
Yeah, both of them, the shooter and his accomplice that was driving a moped, they both entered during the Biden administration. They both were released on their own recognizance. Wasn't even a bomb placed on, wasn't detention. They released them right away. And as you said, in the last 4 years, Sean, unvetted. Unvetted people released, illegal aliens released in the country, weren't held more than a day. And, and they've both been involved with criminal activity in Massachusetts and in New York. Arrested in New York 3 times. And not one time did NYPD reach out to ICE or respond or detain or just reach back in the street.
So New York State Democrats have funneled over $600 million taxpayer dollars to illegal alien advocacy groups. They want to hire attorneys for illegal immigrants in their state? How is that in and of itself legal? Because I don't believe it is.
Well, you know, Governor Hochul, you know, she supported the Bail Reform Act. This is why these people, these illegal aliens, walked out of a NYPD precinct. They didn't even get to Rikers Island. So it starts with bail reform. Then the sanctuary city, you know, starts with de Blasio and the city council. You know, I put a lot of blame on the city council because we had an agreement to put ICE back into Rikers Island so we can arrest a lot of bad guys in the safety and security of Rikers Island. And the city council sued and stopped that from happening. So I put a lot of blame on the city council why the crime rate is so high in New York. But look, we're arresting record amounts of public safety threats in New York. We're making New York safer every day because of the people we arrest. But we got a lot more to do. We got a lot more to find. And that's why President Trump committed 2 weeks ago. We are going to prioritize sanctuary cities because we know we have a problem. We know they're releasing public safety threats every day. And I said today at the press conference, we're going to flood the zone of sanctuary cities. We're sending additional agents. We're going to flood the neighborhoods with officers. We're going to flood worksite enforcement. If they don't give us access to the bad guy in Rikers Island or at the precincts, then we'll go to the neighborhood and find them. We're not going to give up on this. We're going to just send more resources. Double down, as President Trump said, triple down.
Okay, so ICE agents did arrest a Mexican illegal immigrant after the beheaded body of an Illinois woman was found in his yard. And, you know, I listen to Hunter Biden lashing out, dropping F-bomb after F-bomb. That's fine. You know, the guy made millions, he admittedly had no experience in energy, oil, gas, or coal, or Ukraine, or China. Put all that aside. And he's saying all of this, and this is very typical of the left. Not one time his father, he didn't mention how his father allowed anywhere between, 12 and 20 million people. We don't know the actual number. Known terrorists and cartel members, gang members, murderers, rapists, and other violent criminals. And it's amazing. How come, can you explain the psychology, why the left never mentions the Laken Rileys, the Rachel Morans, the Jocelyn Nungary's, your agents that are now targets of violence and doxing, you yourself a target of such. How come they don't care about all the law-abiding people that have been raped, murdered, and victims of other violent crime? I never hear that from the left. Why is that?
Well, look, the former first drug addict doesn't know what he's talking about, first of all. But the left doesn't want to admit the truth. The left doesn't want to admit the truth. They know that under President Biden, not by accident, not by mismanagement, not by incompetence, by design, 10.5 million people came to our border and they released a vast majority of the United States. Sex trafficking women and children, historic high. Over 250,000 Americans dead from fentanyl coming across the border, an historic high. Over 400 people on terrorist watch lists were arrested coming across the border, an historic high. Cartels made more money than they ever made. And as you and me talked about many times, over 2 million known gotaways enter this country. We arrested 400 people on terrorist watch lists. How many of that 2 million came from the country sponsoring terror that Joe Biden led in this country? So you're right. President Trump's come back in office. We are looking for these people. We're trying to find as many criminals, national security threats as we can. Right now, in 7 weeks, President Trump created the most secure border in the history of this nation in 7 weeks. What Joe Biden wouldn't do in 4 years. President Trump proves to the American people every day why he's the greatest president of my lifetime. We're going to fix this, Sean. We're going to keep going after the criminals. We're going to keep going after national security threats. And as I said, President Trump's committed to flooding the zone of sanctuary cities because they're the problem, and that's where we got to focus our attention on.
Listen, you're doing a phenomenal job. Everybody involved, the agents are doing a phenomenal job. Kristi Noem, phenomenal job. But they allowed so many people and so many unvetted illegals with all these criminal backgrounds, even terrorist connections and assassination squads. It's like a needle in a haystack. I just pray our country is not attacked. I pray. Because they already have blood on their hands, they'll have more. Tom Hman, good to see you, my friend. Always. Thank you. Hey, Sean Hannity here.
Tom Hman. They said his face looks like the border wall.
So here we go. Hunter Biden going on a profanity-filled tirade against President Trump and many other people when asked about the administration's deportation efforts in this 3-hour-plus podcast. It's a
crime what they're doing. He's a f***ing dictator thug.
Bukele or Trump?
Both.
Right, talking about deporting the worst of the worst that his dad let in over to El Salvador to go to prison. Joining us now is nationally syndicated political reporter and author of the hit book, Butler, Selena Zito. Selena, your thoughts about why Joe Biden went out and said what he said and who he chose to do it with?
Well, I actually never heard of this podcaster beforehand. Maybe it's just because I'm old. But, the whole event seemed very intentional, right? We're going to go out there. We are definitely going to take out all the people that have wronged us. We're going to make it seem authentic by dropping the F-bomb over 112 times. And we're just going to take no prisoners. But it's that sort of Biden against the world thing. His father is someone that I've covered for 30 years. This is exactly the way his dad would have handled it. So I think that this was very intentional.
But the people he blew up aren't just Trump. That's expected. Blowing up Axelrod. He said the Pod Save America, they're second-class writers, junior writers still living off their days with Obama. And then James Carville hasn't won a race since the 1980s. And then David Axelrod wouldn't have a career if it wasn't for Barack Obama. That was all him. Rahm Emanuel, a so-called presidential candidate. Does he want to get invited to any Democratic parties anymore? Here he is talking about what happened to his dad at the debate. Watch.
I'll tell you what, I know exactly what happened in that debate. He flew around the world, basically, and the mileage that he could have flown around the world 3 times. Yeah. He's 81 years old. He's tired of shit. They give him Ambien to be able to sleep. He gets up on the stage, and he looks like he's a deer in the headlights.
Really? Ambien, prescription drug.
Yeah. Yeah, for the guy who's supposed to answer the 3 a.m. phone call, it's bewildering, right? I can't imagine a doctor prescribing that to a president, and I can't imagine that this has been a secret. So this, again, was part of this sort of rehearsed event to try to save the Biden legacy, right? And there's 2 reactions out there. I was out in talking with people when this dropped, and you have Democrats who are like, oh, please go away. We are never going to recover from this. It just goes on and on and on. And Republicans are like, oh, thank you so much. Just keep going. It's amazing the mistakes that keep happening to the Democrats with the name Biden associated with it.
And which is so crazy about the crossfire, he goes after Jake Tapper. Nobody watches his show. What does Jake Tapper know? Really? So he's going after all his own side. So in the end, I always said, you believe that the family wanted him to do this? But I always say, when you do something this controversial, what do you want the end game to be? To have absolutely no friends at all? Not a dollar for a new Biden library? Not a person who wants to hear a speech? So I just wonder what the end game is. Do you know? Or do you think you know?
Well, yeah, well, I don't think the Bidens care if they have a friend. I think they want to be remembered a certain way. They want to be vindicated. They believe they are entitled to that. And they're going to go out and pursue that until they get what they want. Unfortunately, they're completely unself-aware of the damage not only they are doing to the family, but they're also doing it to their party. And most presidents want a legacy to be that they've made their party better, stronger, bigger. What they're doing is shrinking it even more.
I hear you. Selena, congratulations on the success of Butler. Everyone should go out and grab it. Selena Zito, thanks.
Of course.
So it was announced that Stephen Colbert's show was going to be canceled. And last night was The Late Show's first full week back since being canceled. And Stephen Colbert kicked it off with lashing out at President Trump because President Trump put out that message on Truth Social that he's happy about the cancellation. Listen.
In a completely unrelated story, on Friday, Donald Trump posted, "I absolutely love that Colbert got fired. His talent was even less than his ratings." How dare you, sir? Would an untalented man be able to compose the following satirical witticism? Go f*** yourself. Thank you. The president went on, I hear Jimmy Kimmel is next. Nope. No, absolutely not, Kimmel. I am the martyr, okay? Okay, there's only room for one on this cross, and I gotta tell you, the view is fantastic from up here.
I mean, it's actually pretty terrible. The impression was terrible, the lack of comedy that was presented there. He was just an extreme partisan. And he was the left's guy, and he didn't get the ratings. He didn't get the support. And I think at the end of the day, it was a business decision. They can say it was about the settlement and all that. At the end of the day, if he was delivering, they would have kept him. And he wasn't. There's a new king of late night.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot. I really do think it came down to the numbers. I don't know if it would have happened without the sale. I don't know how you lose $40 million. How do you continue to do that at network television? I mean, they used to pay Johnny Carson a ton of money to work 3 days a week, and they were still making money, and they let him even own the show. That's how valuable the franchise was. But Jimmy Fallon, Seth Meyers, Jon Stewart, I watched this morning, all went out. They're great friends, and they have the same agent.
They were all in the audience, right?
Yeah.
He brought up...
was Jon Stewart in the audience? I think Jon Stewart had his own show.
Jon Stewart was, Seth Meyers, Jimmy Fallon, John Oliver. They all made cameos, and they brought out Lin-Manuel Miranda and Weird Al Yankovic to perform a song. They sang a Coldplay song, and then the camera picked out couples in the crowd in reference to that viral kiss cam drama over the weekend. And they spotted Anderson Cooper and Andy Cohen, who gave Anderson Cooper a big smooch, and then Myers and Fallon were showed. You could see the Donald Trump.
You know what? One thing I noticed though, after seeing all of them come together, it is really us, and when I mean us, Fox against everyone else. It's like it's only us.
And Greg Gutfeld
against all of them. They all come together. The country doesn't have anyone to represent their point of view, talk about what matters to them. It's just us. It's just us.
Well, Greg Gutfeld gets more than, $3 million a night?
Yeah.
And those other three, they're not even on cable. You don't even have to pay for cable to watch those other three. Combined, they get about $3 million.
Right. The most that Greg could get is he has got an audience of 67 million in the audience. Possible. They're in the 80s and 90s.
It's unbelievable.
So,
I'm Steve Doocy.
Well, everybody knows conventional cable news network is almost going out of the way. Everybody's on the internet right now. But with that being
Hunter
said,
Biden
here we go.
he was on a podcast. It's a 3-hour podcast. A year after his dad drops out of the race, he goes on this scorched earth rant on Democrats in this podcast, uses a lot of foul language, goes after George Clooney for his role in taking down the Biden campaign. Listen to this.
I don't have to be nice. Number one, I agree with Quentin Tarantino. George Clooney is not a actor. He is a I don't know what he is. You, what do you have to do with anything? Why do I have to listen to you? What right do you have to step on a man who's given 52 years of his life to the service of this country and decide that you, George Clooney, are going to take out basically a full-page ad in the New York Times to undermine the president at a time in which, by the way, what do people care about the most? Why do you think that the Republicans have an advantage over us? Because they're unified. They will go along with anything. I wasn't asking anybody to go along with anything. I was asking people to go along with this. The most successful administration in my lifetime.
Bro.
The most successful
that he can remember.
Record inflation, a border that was overrun.
Little blackouts.
Our enemies coming after us. You got wars in the Middle East because of his dad's policies. But you know what? I actually love it. Honestly, people are making fun of it, but he reminds me of his father. This is Joe Biden in his prime. The profanity, going after people. Inaccuracy, making up stuff. This is him.
Well, he also said about George Clooney, remember when there was an arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, and Joe Biden said it was outrageous? Well, George Clooney didn't like that. And he said that George Clooney kept blowing up the White House, like texting officials saying, how dare he do that? He was going to embarrass the president. He said, Hunter Biden said George Clooney was going to pull out of that fundraiser that he did right before the debate, where George Clooney said that President Biden didn't even recognize him, even though they had been friends for a while. But his wife George Clooney's wife, was a legal expert, recommending the International Criminal Court seek action against against Netanyahu over Israel's war in Gaza. So she was in support of what was of the Palestinians and not of Israel. So he was upset.
Yeah, just so you know, she is anti-Israel.
100%.
I mean, I don't know if it's anti-Semitic, but he's totally anti-Israel. She's way to the left. So everyone says, oh, she's got so much class and intellect. Sure. But just understand, she is way to the left. So is George Clooney. So George Clooney, and think about this. If George Clooney doesn't have the fundraiser, he stays at, Joe Biden stays at the G7 when it becomes a G20. He stays in Europe. But instead, he's got to come back for that fundraiser and then go back to Europe again. And obviously, at 111 years old, he's not able to pull it off on a good day, let alone the other days he's on. And then he makes it clear that he's on Ambien, wait a second, that wasn't prescribed as on Ambien. Doctors gave him Ambien because he was so exhausted he couldn't sleep. So still has 3 or 4 days to get together. So again, if this guy is so unself-aware, I'm pretty sure that's not a word, but if you know what I mean. He's not self-aware in that he did more to damage his father than George Clooney, anybody else, even more than Donald Trump. By that laptop, by putting everything on there, and then having to do all the crack and doing all the stuff, and then go on the West Coast and not paying your taxes. This was like a side story that the press did everything to ignore, but in the end, it kept erupting.
He is so unaware, and he forgets some of his past actions. Y'all may remember when he left that gun, he blamed it on the Hispanics. He said it was some Hispanic. When the police asked for their identity, he said it was Hispanics. Well, now when he gave this interview, this 3-hour podcast, he says, well, who's going to clean your room? This is
defending illegal.
Exactly.
People are really upset about illegal immigration. F you. How do you think your hotel room gets cleaned? How do you think you got food on your table? Who do you think washes your dishes? White men in America are 45 more times likely to commit a violent crime than an immigrant.
Right. By the way, I'm pretty sure that illegal immigrants aren't clearing my table and washing my dishes, but I got to check again. But at the last minute, I'm pretty sure that everybody who works in a hotel is not an illegal immigrant.
There are a lot of people here from other countries that have work visas to come over. They do it the right way.
Yeah, so he's angry, obviously. The other thing is he went after Rahm Emanuel. What has he ever done? He's going to run for president, use an expletive. He said David Axelrod's been living off Barack Obama. He never did anything else. And James Carville hasn't won a race since the 1980s. Donald Trump's like, okay, guys, you might want to pull back a little. I mean, he eviscerates the Democratic Party in a way. But do you think the Bidens are happy?
Oh, of course they are. This is his father. They've been waiting to swing back. Joe Biden has always been a grudge holder. And he didn't feel appreciated by the Obamas. He didn't like that he got sidestepped for Hillary Clinton and she ended up losing. He didn't feel appreciated that he was the one became president after Donald Trump's first term, and he never got the appreciation for that. And so I think this is the family said they robbed him of this nomination for the second time. And I think he's speaking for the family.
Well, so Hunter Biden, I read his ex-wife's book. And the family apparently stopped, they couldn't stand her after she wrote this book because you're supposed to stay quiet.
Right.
And I know someone who worked for Jill Biden in the administration and said that very thing, that if you go against the family, then they will have a grudge against you and they will ice you out. They're very powerful. And that's what he's doing with George Clooney. He has this grudge. He's mad at George Clooney. George Clooney took out that ad in the New York Times and wrote that article about I love the guy, but he needs to step down.
By the way, just stop say everyone should stop thinking that the Bidens he's a good family man.
Yeah, you got to stop that.
It is just not true. As that little girl sits over in New Jersey,
I know,
where he as a grandfather should be like, I want to see my granddaughter.
Had to be shamed and to acknowledge her during Christmas.
Yeah, so, I mean, this guy, and then Hunter Biden, you heard his rants. Read his rants on the laptop. He has so much resentment towards his dad and Jill because we already saw his innermost thoughts, and we saw that we see how he came out. The daughter's got a few issues with that diary. We still don't know about the validity of that. And Beau Biden, I met him a couple of times. He ends up, that guy was a fantastic guy. But
sharp.
Yeah, sharp. And obviously, I think maybe he has resentment to him.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmer.
Hillary.
Justice Department has received Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard's criminal referral, outlining claims that the Obama administration manufactured and politicized intelligence to create the 2016 Russia election interference narrative. Doug Luzader joins us now with all the details. Hey, Doug.
Ainsley, good morning. The Director of National Intelligence says the evidence of that was overwhelming, and she has now passed that information over to the Justice Department as a criminal referral. It's not clear yet where it will go from there. And we haven't heard much about Hillary Clinton's emails in a bit, but here we go. Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley just released declassified documents showing, he says, that the FBI failed to fully investigate evidence, including thumb drives, as part of that investigation. Now, here is what Grassley says. The Comey FBI's negligent approach and perhaps intentional lack of effort in the Clinton investigation is a stark contrast to its full-throated investigation of the Trump-Russia collusion hoax, which was based on the uncorroborated and now discredited Steele dossier. Now, then FBI Director James Comey, at the time, defended that investigation.
What I can assure the American people is that this investigation was done honestly, competently, and independently. No outside influence of any kind was brought to bear.
And the White House press secretary was asked about the new Clinton email revelations yesterday.
It comes as no surprise, unfortunately, and I think that's why you've seen the FBI open up investigations into the individual you mentioned and some others as well.
Now, at the time, if you recall, Comey concluded that Clinton may have mishandled classified material, but that no reasonable prosecutor, he said, would bring a case. Ainsley.
All right. Thank you, Doug.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley.
All right. Finally, it's happening.
Maxwell's sit-down with Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche comes as pressure builds across party lines for answers. The battle for information leading House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer to issue a subpoena for Maxwell to testify before his panel.
Next month, lawmakers will head to the prison where Maxwell is right now serving a 20-year sentence to hear exactly what she has to say. We have live Fox News team coverage for you. Jonathan Turley is here on that in moments.
But we begin with our David Spont. He's live here in Washington with the latest on this meeting between Todd Blanche and Ghislaine Maxwell. Dave?
Well, hey, John, good to be with you. It's not clear exactly what time this meeting began today, how long it will go, or even what they're talking about, though clearly we'd love to be a fly on the wall to hear that conversation. But Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche is meeting with the former girlfriend and convicted co-conspirator of Jeffrey Epstein. As we mentioned, it's happening at the courthouse in Tallahassee. This is not far from the prison where Maxwell is serving a 20-year sentence behind bars. Again, what's being discussed, we don't know. The Justice Department not commenting about any of the meeting details, but we do have some recent photos snapped by Fox Digital of Ghislaine Maxwell recently outside the Florida prison on a run or a walk. Now, her attorney says that she'll tell the truth, but the question has to be asked, at what price? Is there a deal to be cut with the Justice Department? Again, DOJ officials not even commenting on that possibility. But that question has been asked and will be asked many times in the future. In more Maxwell news, as we mentioned, House Oversight Chairman James Comer issued that formal subpoena for her to testify in a prison deposition regarding her role in what she may know in Epstein's crimes. Now, she could take the Fifth Amendment and keep quiet. Here's Comer.
August 11th is the date when we hope to depose Maxwell in that prison facility in Tallahassee.
And yesterday, a Florida federal judge says she will not release grand jury material in Epstein's solicitation of a minor case in Florida back in 2008. The judge says her hands are tied, as anything to do with a grand jury in the American court system is typically kept close to the vest and secretive. But John and Sandra, we are still awaiting decisions from judges on grand jury transcripts from the New York Jeffrey Epstein and the New York Ghislaine Maxwell cases. Those could come at any time. This was a request by Attorney General Pam Bondi in the name of transparency. But again, judges will typically rule against releasing grand jury material, as I'm sure Professor Turley will mention soon if you ask him. Back to you.
But I'm sure, and we will ask him that, I'm sure that the professor will also agree that there are exceptions to the rule. based
Sure.
on a compelling interrogatory. We'll see. David, thank you. Give us more details of this meeting when you can. Appreciate it. Sandra?
All right, Jonathan
Thank
Turley's
you.
here, constitutional law attorney, professor at George Washington University, and Fox News contributor. So jump on in there with these questions, Jonathan, as this meeting is happening right now. What are your thoughts?
Well, Sandra, one of the interesting aspects about this meeting is that Blanche may be the first Department of Justice official to interview Maxwell. I was under the impression, the reporting previously, was that she had spoken to investigators. After all, there were numerous state and federal investigations into this scandal. I was told by a member of her legal team that she has never been interviewed by the Justice Department. And that does raise the question of whether she is an untapped source of information. So this is a much more significant interview than many of us might have anticipated. The assumption is that if she had something to trade, she would have done it already. I mean, the expiration date on this milk is long past because she's already been sentenced to 20 years, and you would think she would have come forward and say, look, I've got something here that's worth a trade. But she is making many people feel uncomfortable today because she is someone who may have a lot of information that simply has not been revealed.
Yeah, and her brother is suggesting that she will be putting forward new evidence. He tells the New York Post, quote, she will be putting before the court material new evidence that was not available to the defense at her 2021 trial, which would have had a significant impact on its outcome. All right, so this is also Maxwell's attorney responding to all of this on BBC. She would testify truthfully, as she always has said she would. As for the congressional subpoena, Ms. Maxwell is taking this one step at a time. She looks forward to her meeting with the Department of Justice, and that discussion will help inform how she proceeds. I guess we're really left wondering, I mean, is this just a little bit of new information, or is she sitting on a mountain of new evidence?
Well, that's the intriguing aspect, because most of us assumed that she had been interviewed repeatedly. That's what the legal team is now saying has not actually occurred. And of all of the people that would have the goods, essentially, on this scandal, it is Maxwell. I mean, with the exception of Epstein himself, she was this ubiquitous presence. She's in all of these pictures. She's just in the background. That is always your most dangerous witness, someone who is unseen but always there. And the question is, does she have something that would be material for a criminal prosecution? Not just embarrassing. Obviously, there's going to be lots of embarrassing information. But what we're probably going to find out through Congress as well as the Department of Justice is whether indeed she has something more that has never been revealed.
Yeah, and that is the bottom line in your piece, The Mystery of Ghislaine Maxwell. Does Epstein's associate have an untold story? Before you go, Professor Turley, I want to go back to our conversation yesterday on Tulsi Gabbard. She showed up at the White House press briefing yesterday. She shook things up, citing this new declassified intel that shows the Obama administration was politicizing intelligence. Jason Chaffetz joined you and went off on this on America Reports yesterday. Listen.
Anytime I've ever heard of somebody lying to a court, the court takes care of itself. There are repercussions to that. So when the government lies to the FISA court, where is Chief Justice Roberts on this? Where is the court? How come the court is not going back? I'm not an attorney. Jonathan Turley's going to have to take this. Why isn't the court demanding that there are repercussions for those people that they bogusly signed these warrants?
And then we ran out of time and the show was over. So can we get your response, sir? Where is the court on this?
Well, Jason has a very good point here, and he's walked the walk. He's been there in Congress and trying to get this information. And it does appear that a couple of these figures may have committed perjury. I think the most vulnerable may be Brennan, who's like a 30-point buck now out in the open. I mean, this stuff goes directly to information that he gave to Congress. It seems to be in contradiction. And so there are real questions here. I mean, people talk about, well, you can't charge Obama. That's very likely the case. He's probably protected. But these individuals, whether it's Comey or Brennan, are not protected from perjury charges if the statute of limitations has not run. They are more likely to be called again to repeat prior testimony.
Professor Trill.
There you have it. There you have it. Also, we got to do this rerun for Hulkamania.
TMZ is reporting wrestling legend Hulk Hogan has died at 71 years old. Correspondent Jeff Paul is live with more on this, Jeff.
Yeah, Harris, and again, a TMZ Sports reporting wrestling legend Hulk Hogan has died at the age of 71 years old. This coming eventually WWE on the map. Now, medics were reportedly dispatched to Hulk Hogan's Clearwater home early Thursday morning, with operators reportedly stating that he was in cardiac arrest. TMZ also reporting that a slew of police cars and EMTs were parked outside of Hogan's home. And the icon, as they put it, was carried on a stretcher and into an ambulance. Just a few weeks ago, Hogan's wife, according to TMZ, denied rumors that he was in a coma, stating that his heart was strong as he recovered from some surgeries. But certainly there have been some rumors about his declining health in recent weeks. He was born Terry Jean Bollea in Augusta, Georgia. And again, it's really hard to put to words what he meant to sports, to celebrity, his signature blonde hair, his ripping of his shirt before a match. Truly one of the legends of the sports world and of the wrestling world. And we'll wait to hear more confirmation. But right now, again, TMZ reporting that Hulk Hogan has passed away at the age of 71.
Jeff Paul, thank you for getting us at least a little bit more information about this. Not just a wrestling legend, but also in entertainment and even as of late, politics. Let's bring in Lauren Conlon now, entertainment reporter. And we're watching a Trump rally from last election season. And also he was at the convention as well. I mean, he was so beloved. Lauren, you're with me now. In the entertainment world, though, this is an earthquake.
Yes, I mean, Harris, I do not know what is happening this week. We are losing so many wonderful people. And one of Hulk Hogan's last tweets in the last few months was, quote, "Every day I'm reminded that God is good. Always thankful, HH." And, you know, I grew up watching wrestling. I grew up watching him on his reality show, Hogan Knows Best. I mean, he is inarguably one of the most important and influential figures in the history of professional wrestling. I think there was this big legendary main event against Andre the Giant in WrestleMania, and it was the biggest crowd they ever had. There was almost 100,000 fans at the Pontiac Silverdome. I mean, he was so popular. This was an event that was talked about for years to come. He was
everyone's friend. Like, he remembered people's names in the audience. I mean, it was really, really remarkable, the connection that every age group had with Hulk Hogan. Your last quick thought.
Yeah, no, you are exactly right. I mean, he was a television dad to me as well. He was not just a wrestler. And so watching him with his children, it was just so wonderful. And my heart goes out to them. I will be praying for his family.
Wow. The legendary Hulk Hogan has passed away, man. Life is just beautiful. It's beautiful. He passed away at the age of 71 years old, and he did a lot. God bless his soul, man. All right, here we go. Tulsi and Hillary.
DNI Tulsi Gabbard is doubling down on allegations that Obama, the administration officials, politicized intelligence against Donald Trump.
So Griff Jenkins is live at the White House with the details. Griff, update us.
Well, good morning, guys. DNI Gabbard certainly shook things up in the briefing room yesterday, releasing more documents accusing former President Obama and his top intel aides of manufacturing and politicizing intelligence that led to the years-long Russiagate investigation. And she's sending the documents, referring it to the DOJ for possible prosecution. Watch.
Believe that any of this new information implicates former President Obama in criminal behavior?
We have referred and will continue to refer all of these documents to the Department of Justice and the FBI to investigate the criminal implications of this.
For even former President Obama?
Correct. The evidence that we have found and that we have released directly point to President Obama leading the manufacturing of this intelligence assessment.
A spokesman for President Obama's office issuing a statement saying, "Our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation flowing out of this White House with a response, but these claims are outrageous enough to merit one. These bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction." Now, the document released yesterday is a report written back in 2017 by the House Intelligence Committee, refuting the narrative that Putin preferred Trump over Clinton in 2016. The report also alleges Russian Foreign Intelligence Service was planning to release unverified health information on Clinton if she won, saying Clinton was suffering from intensified psycho-emotional problems, including uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness. Clinton was placed on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers. Now, late last night, a longtime Clinton aide got back to Fox calling the claim, quote, ridiculous. And the top Democrats on the House and Senate Intelligence Committees are calling this all a mere distraction. Guys?
Well, it's a legitimate investigation. Thanks, Griff. And I guess the new revelations are they believe on December 9th that had a totally different conclusion about what Trump and Russia were doing in 2016. Up until December 9th, they had no problem saying that Russia tried to infiltrate into our elections, but were not successful. Something happened, and with Barack Obama leading this meeting, that said, we believe that there was in it to make Trump win, and we're going to investigate collusion of the Trump campaign. And that's when 2.5 years of distraction took place.
So a couple of things that have happened. First, you have the DNI, who manages all of the intelligence agencies doing the report. So a lot of people keep citing the Senate, as well as Jonathan Durham, as well as Mueller. They didn't have access to this information. And so now that is what is new. The timeline is what is new. The second thing is you got a Department of Justice now that is essentially assembled an entire A team to find out who can be charged, because we see this often, Ainsley. We'll see this big story of someone doing something criminal, and nothing ever happens to them. Now we have a Department of Justice that's going to see if it meets the standard.
Yeah, she says she has new evidence that points all the way up to Barack Obama, but his spokespeople deny his involvement. Andy McCarthy thinks that he was complicit, but says you can't prosecute him. Listen.
There's no doubt that Obama was complicit up to his neck in what I think was the worst political dirty trick in American history. The issue narrowly is whether there's any crime that comes out of that. The scandal here is they had a legitimate reason to investigate Russia's meddling in the election. And what they did was they used that as a pretext to basically investigate Trump, to spy on his presidency, and to try to make him an ineffective president. That's why it's a terrible political dirty trick. The issue, again, Brian, is it prosecutable? And I just don't see it.
Not yet.
The report also says that they had career intel officials that were looking into this, and they did not believe, and they said this in the report, that Putin was working to elect Donald Trump. There was no collusion. But then Brennan still used the dirty dossier to create this narrative that there was collusion, which was paid for by Hillary Clinton. And so it appears that he wasn't listening to the intel officers who were investigating this, that there was no collusion.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley.
Oh, my goodness. This is not going to go away, same as Jeff's
21
file.
Democrats-led states are suing the Trump administration in a push to restore taxpayer funded benefits, I should say, for illegal migrants. Reporters our Tom Hman is here. He'll react to that in moments. But first, Griff Jenkins has more on this from the White House. So, Griff, what is their plan exactly?
Well, so Sandra, these 21 AGs, all from Democrat-led states, are suing the Trump administration to restore taxpayer-funded benefits for illegal aliens. Benefits, by the way, paid for by you, the American people. Now, this lawsuit, led by New York's Letitia James, comes after several federal agencies announced earlier this month they're cutting undocumented immigrants' access to more than a dozen health and education programs.
It's nothing more than an attempt by this administration to terminate programs that millions of individuals have relied upon in order to advance his cruel immigration policies. It is unconscionable, it's unconstitutional, it's in violation of the law, and that is why we are seeking an injunction against the implementation of this.
Now, the Trump administration claims by barring access to programs like Head Start, food aid, and job training for illegal aliens, they are preserving nearly $40 billion in benefits for American citizens. But these states argue the changes are causing significant disruptions already, and that providers could struggle to verify the citizenship status of recipients. The National Republican Congressional Committee is blasting this lawsuit, saying, quote, "Let that sink in. Democrats are fighting in court to take your money and give it to criminals who broke our laws." But as Democrats push to restore access, they argue most federal benefits are already off limits to illegal aliens. Meanwhile, in some progressive states like California and Illinois that have state-funded health benefits for illegal aliens, they're now starting to scale those programs back due to budget shortfalls. Sandra?
All right, Griff Jenkins live at the White House on that for us. Griff, thank you. John?
All right, Sandra, for more on this, let's bring in Tom Homan, the Trump administration border czar. Tom, a lot to get to in the next few minutes. But let me get you, first of all, to comment on this lawsuit brought by Letitia James and attorneys general from 20 other states.
Well, look, it's ridiculous. Letitia James, I mean, she's the attorney general of the state of New York. She's the chief law enforcement officer. She's an officer of the court. She should want ICE out there enforcing the law. And as far as, you know, I've heard for decades from the Democrats that illegal aliens don't take advantage of our social services programs. They have. I've been around a long time. This is a great move by President Trump. Number one, it ends an enticement for a lot of people to come here. And number two, taxpayer benefits should go to the United States taxpayers, not those who are in the country illegally, who entered the country illegally, which is a crime. So this is the exact thing we should be doing. I salute President Trump for pushing this.
I know, Tom, that you are very frustrated with the lack of cooperation that you're getting from law enforcement officials in New York State, in particular New York City, when it comes to ICE operations. Letitia James had this to say about New York's support for ICE operations. Listen here.
New York State and other Democratic states cooperate with ICE when it comes to criminal convictions, but when it comes to innocent individuals who serve as your nanny, who clean your home, individuals who are our neighbors, individuals who unfortunately are just trying to make ends meet each and every day.
So she's saying it's a different thing, that they're cooperating with you on criminal convictions, but other folks, not so much. But are they cooperating with you on criminal convictions?
No, they're not. You know what she's talking about. Bottom line is we are prioritizing criminal threats and public safety threats and national security threats. We had an agreement to get into Rikers Island, and Mayor Adams, signed an executive order to get into Rikers Island. Of course, the governor came down, totally against it. City council sued and kept us out of there. We're on our way to some collaboration on criminals in Rikers Island, but that was shut down. But they keep pushing this issue. They're helping us. No, they're not. New York City, matter of fact, the two men who were involved with shooting the off-duty CBP officer, they both were released from NYPD precincts many times, several times. So, and look, in New York, NYPD wants to help us. The officers on the ground want to help us, but it's a sanctuary city that was created by Bill Blasio and supported by the city council that has shut us out. Letitia James is wrong. New York is not helping us with criminals.
All right. A shining example of that might be what happened with the CBP officer who was shot by an illegal alien in Fort Washington Park. Here's the rap sheet of one of the people under arrest. Christian Ayabar Baroa entered the U.S. illegally in June of 2022. New York City ignored a detainer against him. He was charged with second-degree reckless endangerment, grand larceny, petit larceny a couple of times. Despite an ICE detainer, he was released back onto New York City streets. Also charges of reckless driving, driving without a license. A final removal order of January 3rd, 2023, yet he was still out in the streets. His alleged accomplice, Miguel Francisco Mora Nunez, entered the U.S. illegally April 4th, 2023, charged with grand larceny, petit larceny, reckless driving, second and third degree assault, criminal contempt a couple of times, robbery with a firearm in Massachusetts. Final order of removal November 6, 2024. Yet he was still on the streets as well. So what does that say about this vaunted cooperation that Letitia James is talking about?
There is no cooperation. I'll use Laken Riley, for example. She may be alive today if NYPD would work with ICE, because he was arrested and charged with a crime in New York City and simply walked out of the precinct. The illegal aliens who attacked NYPD officers in Times Square, they're arrested. No one called ICE. And so it goes on and on and on. So I blame several people. I blame the governor of New York, Governor Hogan, who pushed bail reform, so people are being released straight from the precincts. And I blame the city council to New York City, because they are shutting down any cooperation with ICE. Again, we're so close to getting to Rikers Island so we can arrest a bad guy in the safety and security of a jail rather than release him in the community, which is going to be another community threat. City council shut it down through lawsuit. So Letitia James, dead wrong on this.
Yeah, and, a CBP officer lucky to be alive thanks to New York City policies after he was shot by that illegal alien. Tom, well, I know that you've vowed to flood the zone there in New York City. We'll keep an eye and see what happens. Appreciate your time, sir.
Tom Hman is not playing around. All right, here we go.
Unveiling a newly declassified House intelligence report from back in 2020 that exposes how the Obama administration tried to, quote, sabotage Trump in 2016 by pushing false narratives of Russian interference in the election.
Do you believe that any of this new information implicates former President Obama in criminal behavior?
We have referred and will continue to refer all of these documents to the Department of Justice and the FBI to investigate the criminal implications of this.
For even former President Obama?
Correct. The evidence that we have found and that we have released directly point to President Obama leading the manufacturing of this intelligence assessment.
Pretty unbelievable. Even though he was heading out of office, former President Obama responding in a statement saying, quote, "Our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation flowing out of the White House with a response, but these claims are outrageous enough to merit one. These bizarre allegations are ridiculous and a weak attempt at distraction." Fox News contributor and former Assistant U.S. Attorney Andy McCarthy joins us now. But yet, the former president was involved in trying to find out the role that Russia played and suddenly was interested in the role of possible collusion with the Trump campaign.
Yeah, well, Brian, I don't think that's a new disclosure or a new revelation. I wrote a book about this 8 years ago called Ball of Collusion, which laid this out. There's no doubt that Obama was complicit up to his neck in what I think was the worst political dirty trick in American history. The issue narrowly is whether there's any crime that comes out of that under circumstances where, even President Trump spent all of 2024 telling people that presidents have to have complete immunity from prosecution, and this all happened 9 years ago.
True. And you had the statute of limitations. Got it. Couple of things I think that people should understand, and I think what the DNI is hoping for people to understand, is that the thought of Russia hacking our election was something that was being investigated since 2014, before Donald Trump was even running. And when they looked at what he did, they didn't infiltrate and make any significant infiltration into the election. And there was no evidence of any collusion with the Trump campaign. That seems trumped up by Barack Obama. Senator Ted Cruz said this about what the new paperwork that was just released. Tell me what you think.
December 8th, Obama's presidential daily briefing. Here's what it said, quote, "We assess that Russian and criminal actors did not impact recent U.S. election results by conducting malicious cyber activities against election infrastructure." So all the way up to December 8th, Over and over and over again, they say, no Russia, no Russia, no Russia. Well, December 9th should be a day that will live in infamy, because this is a moment when senior members of our government decided to lie to the American people and to sabotage President Donald Trump.
And really did for the next 2 years. Correct? And do you think we need to know why?
Well, I respectfully disagree with Senator Cruz's interpretation of that, because I think what he's referring to is they were concerned about Russian attacks on election infrastructure. And what they were talking about after the election was Russian hacking of the DNC and the messaging that was anti-Clinton that they put out. Even the Trump CIA agrees that that happened. So I think that, you know, the scandal here is they had a legitimate reason to investigate Russia's meddling in the election. And what they did was they used that as a pretext to basically investigate Trump, to spy on his presidency, and to try to make him an ineffective president. That's why it's a terrible political dirty trick. The issue, again, Brian, is it prosecutable? And I just don't see it.
Because of the statute of limitations, or you just don't see criminal behavior?
Well, you know, look, they're throwing around the word treason the last couple of days, which, you know, is preposterous, because treason is making war on the United States or aiding our wartime enemies, which obviously didn't happen here. Now, there is a statute that makes it a crime for people who are government officials, including, say, police, but even other kinds of government officials, to conspire against people's civil rights. If they were talking about that, I would think they were at least having a serious discussion of something that's a criminal statute that might fit this situation, but that's not what they're talking about to the moment.
And the last thing, the revelation was to say there's overwhelming evidence they were trying to infiltrate to help Donald Trump win is also wrong. They thought Hillary Clinton was going to win, and they wanted to diminish her as much as possible. Just real quick, is that correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. The finding that they meddled in the election to denigrate Clinton was correct, but it was because Putin thought Clinton was going to win the election. It wasn't to hurt Clinton in order to help Trump win. There's no evidence of that.
The book tells you a lot of this. You were ahead of the game, ahead of the curve. We'll see where this goes, because there's more whistleblowers and paperwork going to emerge. Andy, let's stay in touch. Thanks so much.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley.
All right, you guys, what do you think is going to happen with this whole situation with Tulsi Gabbard and the Obama situation? Hunter is spilling the beans, though. Here we go.
And welcome to Hannity. And we start tonight with a Fox News alert. Justice is coming, a bombshell announcement from the Attorney General Pam Bondi. The DOJ is now launching a strike force to investigate the possible criminal weaponization of the intelligence community under Barack Hussein Obama. Now, this comes only hours after the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, released even more damning evidence against the former Obama administration. And tonight, that is our top story, a very real scandal surrounding a very fake hoax that makes Watergate, frankly, look like a walk in the park. Trump-Russia collusion was a fantasy, a complete lie, phony, false conspiracy theory fed to Democrats and, of course, perpetuated by the state-run legacy media mob, by the most corrupt administration in modern history. Now, confirmation from the Director of National Intelligence. Nearly a decade ago, the Obama White House reportedly used the full force of your federal government to delegitimize the results of the 2016 election, malign the then President-elect Donald Trump before he even took office, and it was all based on lies cobbled together with an actual Russian disinformation dirty dossier bought and paid for by Donald Trump's opponent, Hillary Clinton. Now, of course, right here on this program, we sounded the alarm. We sounded it in 2016, 2017, 2018, and ever since. We reported the facts. We told the truth. We broke the news. And all the while, so-called journalists on other outlets pushed nothing but a salacious hoax. They peddled nothing but lies and conspiracy theories, of course, led by fake news CNN, MSDNC, and all the major networks. Take a look.
Look, I think that the president does not want to come to terms with the fact that the Russians hacked the election.
President-elect Donald Trump still not sounding convinced that Russia hacked the election.
Russia hacked the election to tilt it to Mr. Trump. The question is, did Mr. Trump cooperate?
Unlike President Trump, he has no doubt the Russians hacked the election.
The Russians definitively hacked the election.
If you can get him to accept that Russia hacked the election, see if you can get him to accept who won the Civil War.
Definitively, Russia hacked the election, and Russia is doing it again now.
The legacy media definitively lied. All one big lie. Now, there's no debate. Today's newly declassified material from DNI Director Tulsi Gabbard paints a very clear web of corruption that leads all the way back to former President Barack Obama himself. Now, it all started with Hillary Clinton losing the 2016 election, and even before, no one in the Democratic Party actually saw Donald Trump winning. They thought Hillary Clinton had this in the bag. As it turns out, so did Russia. That's why, according to U.S. intelligence, Putin allegedly held on to potentially damaging information about Hillary until after the election. The Russians reportedly wanted to use this material to embarrass a, quote, President Clinton, which never happened. Take a look.
The report goes into great detail about the information that Russia and Putin had on Hillary Clinton, which included possible criminal acts, like secret meetings with multiple named U.S. religious organizations in which State Department officials offered, in exchange for supporting Secretary Clinton's campaign for the presidency, significant increases in financing from the State Department. They also had documents that showed the patronage of the State Department to State Department employees who would go and support Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign.
And that's not all. According to Gabbard, there were also allegations about Clinton's mental state that Russia withheld during the campaign. Look at this.
There were high-level DNC emails that detailed evidence of Hillary's, quote, psycho-emotional problems, uncontrolled fits of anger, aggression, and cheerfulness, and that then Secretary Clinton was allegedly on a daily regimen of heavy tranquilizers.
All right, based on intel reports declassified by Gabbard in 2016, you had career intelligence officials, in other words, rank and file officials. They did not believe that Putin was working at all to elect Donald Trump, or that Russia even wanted Trump to win. But that didn't stop former CIA director, far-left hack John Brennan from making up an entirely different story. Take a look for yourself.
Then CIA Director Brennan and the intelligence community mischaracterized intelligence and relied on dubious, substandard sources to create a contrived false narrative that Putin developed a quote-unquote clear preference for Trump. Brennan and the IC misled lawmakers by referencing the debunked Steele dossier to assess, quote-unquote, Russia's plans and intentions, falsely suggesting that this dossier had intelligence value when he knew that it was discredited. The intelligence community excluded significant intelligence and ignored or selectively quoted reliable intelligence that contradicted the intelligence community assessment's key findings on Putin's alleged support for Trump. Including this intelligence reporting would have exposed the ICA's claim as implausible, if not ridiculous.
So Brennan used Hillary Clinton's dirty Russian disinformation dossier to create an alternative reality about the 2016 election, even though it was well known that the dossier was pure garbage. They were warned as early as August of 2016, do not trust it. It is political. And here's where it gets really interesting. Take a look.
On December 5th of 2016, the FBI and ODNI gave the House Intelligence Committee its first post-election classified briefing, in which there was no mention of Putin aspiring to elect Trump by either agency. The Presidential Daily Brief, drafted on December 8th of 2016, stated that no Russian or criminal actors impacted vote counts. This document was pulled just hours before it was to be published due to quote-unquote new guidance. If it had been published, it would have been briefed to both President Obama and President-elect Donald Trump.
As it turns out, that new guidance, according to Gabbard, was coming from the top. Take a look.
On December 9th, 2016, a National Security Council meeting was called to gather President Obama's senior national security officials, which included CIA Director Brennan, then Obama DNI James Clapper, Susan Rice, and others. Following that secret meeting, DNI Clapper's assistant sent an email to the intelligence community with the subject line, POTUS tasking on Russia election meddling, tasking ODNI leaders to create a new assessment per the president's request. The House Intelligence Committee oversight report that we released today reveals that, quote, unlike routine intelligence community analysis, the intelligence community assessment was a high-profile product ordered by the president, President Obama.
Wow, per the president's request. Now, based on Gabbard's findings, it was Obama who allegedly demanded that new report that tied Trump to Russia, regardless of the facts on the ground, regardless of what the intelligence community came up with. Well, let's just redo it and rewrite history and make it in a way that will go after the next president. Obama's right-hand man at the CIA, John Brennan, then overruled the senior career intelligence officers that had it right in order to publish this fake smear against President Trump. Take a look.
The Intelligence Committee's oversight report reveals that CIA Director Brennan overruled senior CIA officers who challenged the Obama-ordered intelligence assessment, stating, quote, we don't have direct information that Putin wanted to get Trump elected. Yet, the Obama-directed assessment was published on January 6, 2017, which explicitly stated, quote, we assess Putin and the Russian government aspired to help President-elect Trump's election chances, when possible, by discrediting Secretary Clinton and publicly contrasting her unfavorably to him. End of quote.
So they basically took the real intelligence and flipped it completely on its head so they can come up with this narrative about Donald Trump. At the very core of this new bogus intel report was the dirty Russian disinformation dossier, as we said, bought and paid for by Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump's opponent, and the DNC. Take a look.
With regards to the Steele dossier, we now know that one of the source documents that the Obama administration used in the creation of this intelligence assessment in January of 2017 was none other than the discredited, unverified Steele dossier. The House Intel report states, quote, contradicting public claims by then CIA Director Brennan that the dossier was not in any way incorporated into this intelligence assessment. The dossier was referenced in the intelligence assessment's main body text and further detailed in a 2-page assessment annex. John Brennan lied, and he denied using this dossier in this intelligence assessment that President Obama ordered because he knew it was discredited. It was a politically motivated, manufactured document. He directed senior CIA officials to use it anyway.
Now, to be very clear, according to everything you just heard, the nonpartisan director of the CIA threw out the real intelligence report, replaced it with a phony intelligence report filled with bogus information, again, with the Hillary Clinton bought and paid for dirty Russian disinformation dossier, and that was paid for her in 2016. We've gone over that in great detail many times on this program. Apparently, according to Tulsi Gabbard and the newly declassified documents, Brennan did all of this at the behest of then President Barack Obama. Earlier today, we did reach out for comment from Brennan, Obama, and Hillary Clinton. We've yet to hear back. But this is, government corruption at its very worst. The dishonesty, almost unbelievable. They sabotaged a duly elected president, undermined an election, and if you've watched this program, well, you are getting the truth. When the rest of the state-run legacy media mob, as usual, we're dead wrong. We told you the truth from the beginning. Take a look. Hillary Clinton actually colluded with Russia by paying, millions and millions of dollars for that fake news dossier, Russian propaganda, Russian collusion to smear Donald Trump. And she tried to influence you, the American people, to swing the election with those lies. Ironically, Hillary's the one that colluded with Russia with a phony Russian misinformation dossier. 3.5 years, Donald Trump colluded with Russia. The only one that colluded with Russia and bought a dirty Russian dossier was Hillary Clinton. And they used that unverified to spy on a presidential candidate and a president. Only at $1 for every time I said it. In contrast, you still are not getting the truth from fake news CNN, which cut away from DNI Tulsi Gabbard's historic remarks in the White House briefing room. Hey, Sean Hannity here.
Sean Hannity has been saying the facts, and that's just the facts. Okay. All right. Kristi Noem.
Sorry, Kristi Noem is with us.
Secretary.
That's not exactly a hard answer, because they call for the destruction of Israel. They fire rockets into Israel. They've been doing it for years. I went to a border town in Gaza, 10,000 rockets in 10 years, kids play in underground bunker playgrounds. So I find his moral comparisons, frankly, his moral compass off base.
Yeah, I think that video is extremely clear on where Khalil is with his refusal to condemn Hamas. He clearly endorses the actions that they take. It's not hard to answer that question. He could have clearly stated that Hamas is evil, that they need to be destroyed, that their charter is something that has been a prosecution of Jews and the murder of Jews for years, and it would have been easy to walk away from that conversation and let America and the rest of the world know exactly where he was. He didn't, because of the actions he's taken in the past, and because he clearly doesn't want to draw that line between himself and that terrorist organization. So these are the individuals that make it so dangerous right now in this country. We have, as an administration, President Trump has been very clear that when we're out here and following through on our campaign promises, and what he said he would do is that he would go after people who committed crimes in this country and people that clearly did not support, people who support Hamas should not be getting visas and be able to stay in this country legally, and consider this privilege should not be allowed to those individuals.
Madam Secretary, I've said over and over again on this program that Biden, Mayorkas, Harris all have blood on their hands. You went to visit this ICE agent. I mean, shot in the family, and this guy shot in the face. And then you find out the track record of the illegals and the number of times they were put in custody. We had an opportunity to get rid of these people. They didn't do so. Sanctuary city state policies did not allow these cities or states to cooperate with the federal government. We do have a supremacy clause in our Constitution that clearly gives jurisdiction to the federal government. Why aren't those cities and states being held accountable? Because in my view, they're as guilty as Biden and Harris and Mayorkas.
Yeah, President Trump is working to hold them accountable, and he's using his authority that he has as president and the Department of Justice as well to bring these people to justice, and also to continue to tell the people that live in these cities and in these states that their leadership is wrong. Mayor Adams, his city council, the sanctuary policies in New York City make the streets more and more dangerous every single day. I'm so proud of our ICE officers and our CBP officers that are there trying to clean up and get these dangerous criminals out of the city, but also out of this country. Our CBP officer was extremely brave that night when he was there relaxing with his friend. These Dominicans that ambushed them and shot him and were trying to rob them will be brought to justice. We're thankful that now they're off the streets. And we're going to continue to do that kind of work from city to city. You look at Chicago, Boston, LA, over and over again, those local leaders are trying to stop the good work that our ICE agents are trying to do to clean up and make America safe again.
Okay, what was the one guy, 8 separate times he was in custody? 8 times that they let him out? 8 times.
Yeah, that one individual 4 times specifically was arrested in New York City and released back out onto the streets. And then this officer and his friend encountered them, and we saw what happened and what's unfolding today, where that officer is still struggling in the hospital, trying to deal with the injuries that he sustained. Very proud of his reaction and his family and their willingness to stand up for what is right. But every day, American families across this country are victimized by illegal, criminal, violent people who should not be in this country, that Joe Biden let come in under his watch, and then has judges and radical activist judges have allowed to walk free over and over and over again in these cities. You look at Illinois, in Pritzker, and the Mayor Johnson in that city of Chicago have created extremely dangerous situations and allowed criminals to go free over and over and over again. Families deserve justice, and President Trump is determined to bring it to them.
And the sad thing is, you never hear the left, any of these people, these sanctuary city states, ever talk about the names of the victims. They never talk about that. They talk about the so-called rights of the Abrego Garcias and all these other violent criminals. Great work. We appreciate you being with us, Madam Secretary. Thank you. Hey, Sean Hannity.
Thank you for tuning into the live show. All right, with that being said, instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Never give up on God. Believe in yourself. Believe in your dreams and believe in Almighty God. We will be back. Ladies and gentlemen, God is the greatest. Shout out to our esteemed members, Dr. Luke the Goat, Ellie Ingraham, Sandra, Ringmaster, and of course, shout out to our moderators, Mr. Busky, God bless you for being here. Shout out to Enders. Shout out to C. Shelley. Shout out to Zyra's Garden. Shout out to Terry Vinings. Everybody who tuned in, God bless you. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel. If you haven't double tapped your screen for a like, double tap your screen for a like. Also, membership is $4.99. Support the channel. It is your boy Genesis, and you are tuned into the Genesis Show. Regardless of what you're going through, stay strong. God is with you. Do not throw in the towel. Do not throw in the towel. God is your strength. Never, ever, ever, ever give up. God will protect you. He didn't bring you here to be alone. So rest assured that God got you, all right? He is your strength. And with that being said, fathers, take care of your kids. And shout out to the mothers as well. And shout out to the law enforcement officers. Shout out to the veterans, and shout out to the military members. God bless you. Thank you for your service. Shout out to Ice Baby. And everybody who tuned in, God bless you. We're going to be back. We will be back. Shout out to Mr. Busky one more time. XR, God bless you. John Gotti in the beauty. Thank you so much, everybody. All right, we will be back, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good time and go outside, shake hands, mingle with people. You know, life is beautiful. You just never know who you're going to meet. All right, with that being said, I love you guys. America is the greatest country on the face of the earth. God made it so. So, with that being said, it is your boy Genesis one more time, and you are tuned in to the Genesis Show. We will be back. Love you guys.